Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. What we got for you today, we're going to be going over my top baits for the month of October and how I plan on targeting these fish during their fall transition. It's going to be an odd month for a lot of people as these fish move. They're kind of hard to find sometimes until you find them and you get on them, then you can kind of follow them in their pattern. And we'll break that down and explain that in this video as well. We got several categories here and I got several baits in each category, so we'll kind of go over all that, explain to you what we're looking for and what scenarios plan on throwing these things in, and hopefully help you guys have some more success on the water. If you're new here, my name's David. I'm a tackle junkie. I like to collect tackle and do reviews and go over and give you guys first looks at new baits that I can get my hands on, and hopefully help you make a decision whether it's a bait that you want to purchase or not, and you don't have to go out and spend money on it without seeing how it works first. Also, I do some on the water stuff of me actually out fishing, putting these techniques to use, and give you my top baits for the month and different techniques and ways to rig and different stuff like that. So hopefully you guys enjoy the content and hang around, but we're going to go ahead and get into this and kind of show you guys what we're expecting. There's not going to be any order. I'm not going to do like 1 through 5 or 6 or whatever. I'm just going to randomly select here, but we're going to start off with crankbaits. So you got these fish that are transitioning back to getting ready for their winter patterns, and they're chasing all the bait fish is moving in. So they're going to corral all this bait anywhere they can, whether it be the back of a creek arm, a pocket off the main lake. You got these bluff walls that go into a lot of these pockets, and those fish will suspend down those bluff walls and hold those fish back in there. So you'll have fish schooled up, bass schooled up, holding that bait back there, and then they can just go in and have a buffet whenever they need. So the way I like to target these fish, back in the backs of these pockets in these shallow spots, is a square bill. And you'll notice a trend here. All of this stuff is bait fish oriented. This is the 6 cents crush 50. I've got it in the silent. I've got it in the 50X, which is the rattles. And you'll notice the pattern here I'm not going with anything crayfish oriented. It's all going to be bait fish colors because that is the primary forage right now on the lakes that I fish and most of the lakes across the country. So they're chasing these bait fish. These square bills do excellent back in these pockets. Just to show you guys a couple different options here. These are both that 6 cents Crush 50X. I like to use these smaller ones. I don't go up to that 100X right now because they are chasing these tiny bait fish. But these are a couple of the colors that I really like. And but you got these fish moving back into these pockets, and they've got these bait fish corralled back here. And you've got tons of laydowns, tons of rock, a lot of docks and stuff back in here, and several different types of structure to target. And a square bill is an excellent bait to target those fish because of the way it deflects off cover. This crush is one of my favorites because of the way it deflects. I never get hung up with this thing. If you do feel it start to get hung up, you just let off of it. It'll float itself back out a little bit, and then you can continue and not get hung up. Of course, I do recommend having a lure knocker of some sort to be able to get down. You are going to get hung sometimes with a crankbait. That's just the joys of crankbait fishing, but having that lure knocker and being able to get that out tends to be the deal. The lure knocker really comes in handy if you're fishing deeper. Where I'm throwing these is like 6 inches of water down to 4 feet of water. Usually I can get my rod down and unhang my lure if it's hung. So I don't need that lure knocker, but if I'm going with a deeper style crankbait, then I like to have that lure knocker on hand so I can get that out. But here's another option, is this is the Crush 25 Mini. And I'll crack this open just to show you a size comparison here. And then I've got another really cool option here that I want to show you. So this is that Crush 25, and this is in the thread fin shad color. Again, those cool baitfish colors is all I'm going to be going for, and 6th Sense always crushes it with their color patterns. But just to show you, this is the 50 and this is the 25, just a little bit smaller, and helps to target those fish that are chasing that tiny bait. With that being said, when you are chasing those fish that are targeting tiny fish, I have found this. This is a floating crankbait. It'll float itself back out, and it is 3 to 6 foot depth range. This is a little 1 3/4 inch, 13/64 of an ounce, and this is the Arc Fishing CM36. So you guys can see what that is. And then I've got one open here for you. Just a tiny little crankbait. It's not a square bill, but if you're fishing more out and on the rock and stuff on some of these points, and you're wanting these smaller profiles, this is an awesome little crankbait. It's got a really good wobble to it and deflects off that rock and stuff really well. And just to show you, this is that tiny 25. It's even smaller. So if you're looking for that tiny pattern, that tiny profile, this CM36 by Arc Fishing is an excellent option to try out. Now, moving on from the crankbaits, that's one, of course, we'll be throwing in the back of those pockets and on these points, chasing those fish. When we're out on those points, another option that I like to use for underwater, I've got my topwater option here, we'll go over in a minute, but chasing those fish underwater, it's always good to have a jerkbait tied on. And this is the 6th Sense Provoke. And then I like this Arc Fishing J110 SP, and that is their suspending jerkbait. So for this Arc Fishing, I've got one out here just to show you guys kind of the detail of their baits and what you're looking at. Really cool color patterns. This is one that I really like when it's not sunny outside. You got a little bit of cloud cover and you're not really trying to get that crazy shimmer out of it. It's got some shimmer to it, but these matte colors, when you've got that cloud cover, I do really well on. And I really like this one. It's a loud jerkbait, but this one is, let's see, what's the depth on this one? It doesn't actually say the depth on the Arc, but the Provoke 106 is it's a 1/2 ounce suspending, and they typically your 3 to 6 foot range is what both of these are going to be. I don't have any of the DDs. I don't do a lot of deep diving jerkbaits. It's something I need to practice and get a little better on. But this 6th Sense Provoke, I've got it in a few different options. This is the 106 as well. This is a color that when it's sunny outside, I like to throw this one. You've got that golden and silver shimmer, but you've got that orange belly to help them target in on them hooks. And this is an awesome option. This is an excellent jerkbait. I know a lot of people like to throw that Mega Bass 110. I'm not knocking that thing. That is a staple. That is like sets the bar for jerkbaits, but they're expensive. At almost $20 a jerkbait, these things are $10 a jerkbait. You're gonna get hung up with jerkbaits and lose some of them. And losing $10 is a lot easier than losing $20. So that is why I choose to go with these. Still got that excellent action. You've got excellent hardware on them. The Arc hardware doesn't hold up as long as the 6th Sense hardware. It's good out of the box. I would use it in a tournament situation, but you do end up having to swap those hooks out before you do the 6th Sense hooks. Now this is the 6th Sense. This is the downsized version. It's a 90. You got the 106 and the 90. It's just a little bit smaller, not a whole lot difference. But if you're looking for that little smaller profile, they've got that 90 version. That's a good one to go to. But I'm gonna be using that on a lot of these bluff walls coming into the cuts where they're chasing these fish back. And I like to use those for those suspending fish. It's easier to get down there, but I'm not gonna be working my jerkbait super slow this time of year. It's gonna be twitch, 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 pause, twitch, 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 you know, and it's just constant. It's not that winter jerkbait bite where it's twitch, twitch, and then you sit there and let the hooks rest before you twitch it again. These fish are chasing bait right now. They're active. This is the time to get out there and learn to throw these jerkbaits and be power fishing, working that rod. Be throwing these on a medium power, fast action rod. Be out there twitching and be able to wear these fish out. Now, if I'm fishing, I know people that'll fish these over flats and all kinds of scenarios. I'm not saying that's wrong. Everybody's got their own way of fishing. If I'm fishing on these flats or some shallower points or along a lot of grass, that's when I go with my soft jerkbait options. I like this Z2, the KVD caffeine shad, and of course the staple, the Zoom Super Salty Fluke. And that is the deal when it comes to soft jerkbait fishing. I'm gonna do a whole video on soft jerkbait fishing and how I rig these things, go over the different ways to rig them. But just to show you a few is the weightless Texas rig option. That is the #1 go-to. Kick that thing up, pinch that hook behind there, and that's the deal most of the time. One other option is nose hooking that bait. And when I nose hook a bait, it tends to want to pull out of there and rip out. So what I use is this owner centering pin. Screw that right in the front of that bait, and then you've got the line tie on that. Run your hook right through that line tie. It's down in there. And then you don't lose as many baits. You don't tear as many baits up. And then you always have the option of the belly weighted screw lock. And that's another good one to get out there and get that jerkbait a little bit deeper. But if I'm fishing those shallower areas, that's when I tend to go with my soft jerkbait versus the hard jerkbait. And sometimes even in that little deeper area, I will use that weighted soft jerkbait and get it down there a little more because that's the action that the fish want. Okay, next we're gonna hit one of everybody's favorite categories, topwater. And this is when I'm throwing a good walking bait. I like this 6 cent Sexy Dog. Anybody that watches the channel knows that. That's one of my favorites. But when you're looking for something with a little less sound, a little more subtle, a little smaller profile, this 6 cents Dogma is an excellent option. I don't go for the catwalk this time because it is a little louder. I've got that Sexy Dog if I'm wanting to target them that way, and I will swap out. If I'm wanting something a little quieter, a little smaller, but still with 3 hooks, I will go with this 6 cents Dogma. And this is an excellent fishing along these points, back in these shallow coves, and chasing these fish that you see blowing up on top water. They're gonna have these schools of fish, the schools of bait back there. Toss that back, work it a few times, and again, this isn't one where it's twitch, 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 and let it sit. This is one of those where I'm working that bait consistently, give it a short pause, and then go back to working. It's not a time to stop and just sit. Those fish are active, they're chasing bait, and you can get out and just power fish, and that is my favorite. I hate finesse fishing. I hate sitting there, waiting for that bite, waiting for something to get to the bottom, being able to get out and just go, go, go. That's my type of fishing. So that's my favorite. But that is the only topwater I'm going to be throwing right now, unless I'm in a really grassy situation then I'll swap over to a frog. And I'll be using like that KVD Sexy Frog or something like that. But typically I'm fishing the less grass because a lot of that stuff's dying off and those fish are moving out of it. If I can find some wood cover or something in that grass, then I will fish it. But a lot of them are moving out to those grass edges, and I can target them on those grass edges with all of these baits. And then next in here, we've got a mixed category for me. It's really two different things, but I fish them in the exact same scenarios, and that is an underspin. And this is the Owner twist lock underspin. The Owner Flashy Swimmer is what it's called. And then the other, I like to downsize that Flashy Swimmer. And when I'm using this Flashy Swimmer, that is a tiny, tiny little swim bait on here. So this is the 2.75 version of the X-Zone Swimmer. And when I'm fishing my underspins, I'm going with the X-Zone Swimmer or the Largo Shad. If I'm wanting the tighter wobble, I'm going with, it's a tighter, fast wobble with this Largo Shad. If I'm wanting that big, more exaggerated wide wobble and roll, I'm gonna go with that X-Zone Swimmer. And I've got that in the 4-inch, I've got it in the 4.75s, I've got it in a bunch of different options so I can match what those fish are looking for. If there's some bigger fish around there and I think I can get them to bite that bigger bait, I'm gonna throw that bigger one. But what I was saying, this is a mixed category. I like to do the finesse swim baits as well. So this is the Largo Shad, and this is on the Dirty Jigs screwed up tactical bassin jig head, and that's the Tennessee Shad color. This is an awesome, if I'm fishing in open water scenario where there's not a lot of brush or anything for me to get hung up on, I'll throw this open hook like this, and they actually have the one that has the underspin on it as well. So that's another option if you're fishing more open water. If I'm fishing somewhere I'm gonna get snagged, I'm gonna throw this one with or without the underspin on it. It depends on whether I need that flash or not, whether I feel like I need that flash. But this little tiny swim bait right here mimics those bait fish so well, it's hard to bait. So that's an awesome, awesome option. And that will lead me into this big fella. And this is the Hog Farmer Baits tactical umbrella rig. So this is the one that Tactical Bassin did. I think this is the mini, tactical mini. Really stout wires on these things. Last year was my first year actually fishing an umbrella rig, Alabama rig, whatever you want to call it. And I got this thing, got these Largo Shads on here, and I absolutely smashed tons and tons of fish on this thing. I would find them schooled up and just fish after fish after fish. It was ridiculous the amount of fish that I caught on this. So I'm gonna start throwing this right now at the beginning of October. I'm not really gonna start throwing it heavily until more toward the end of October. But you got all these willow blades on here. You've got your 3 dummies up here. In the state of Tennessee, we're only allowed to have 3 hooks. So I've got my 2 right here, and then my one that sticks further back, I always use a little bit bigger, the larger size swim bait. Sometimes I'll put a little chartreuse on the tail or something to make it stand out. You'll learn quickly that middle one that sticks further back is the one that they're gonna eat the most. Having these dummies up here doesn't bother me at all because they're always chasing and feeding up. They're gonna get one of these bottom ones, but I'm gonna say 90% of the time they're gonna eat this one first. So that is something that I will start throwing when I find those fish a little more offshore. I don't throw that thing super shallow. Maybe, I think 6-7 feet was the shallowest that I went with it last year. I couldn't really get any bites on it further up than that, and out to about 20 feet. I'm not a huge deep water fisherman, something I'm trying to get into a little bit more. So being able to have something like this to get out and draw those fish up is awesome. But I kind of put all those, the underspins, the swim baits, and that A-rig in kind of the same category, because I'm going to be fishing those in kind of the same scenarios. I'm going to be looking for some kind of underwater brush, anything that's got those fish schooled up, that I can target them where they're on bait fish, and I can draw their eye to these baits and hopefully get these fish in the boat. But those are all kind of the same. I'll be throwing them again on these bluff walls and stuff coming into these cuts. You see those suspended fish out there. If you've got your graph and stuff, you can see some of those fish sometimes. Throw out, count it down, let it ride down, and then start reeling. And I will fish that A-rig a lot like I do a spinnerbait, give it a twitch every now and then, kind of pulse it and make them flare out. And a lot of times that's when that strike comes. So hold on and be ready. But that is quickly became one of my favorite lures to throw last winter, was throwing this A-rig in any school that I found. And the drawing power that thing had blew my mind. I know people have been using them for years and catching fish on them, and I've seen stuff about them. I've just never really got out and tried it, and I did, and it's changed the way I fish in the wintertime drastically. Okay, we're going to change gears a little bit. Everything I've been showing you has been these tiny downsized options, and another way to target these fish is to show them something that they don't always see. And this is when I like to get out and really start heavily throwing my glide baits as well. And this is the River to Sea S-Waver. I think this one's called You Know It is the color of this one. It doesn't say on here, but this is the S-Waver 168. And that's a really cool color. You got that chartreuse on the bottom. This is another wild color. But another option that I like is this Bait Sanity Antidote. This is a 7-inch bait, where I think these are a 6-inch bait. It's a little bit larger profile. Caught fish on both of these. I've caught fish in ponds on this thing, and in really shallow water. This one floats really high, and it's a super slow sink version. They have just the slow sink version, but I went with this one because you can put these little tungsten strips on and make them sink a little bit faster. That's one thing I like about this glide bait thing, is you can get the slower sinking options and be able to modify it a little bit, whether you put wire on the hooks or bigger hooks, heavier hooks, whatever. You can change the actions of these baits a little bit. But you can see this is a new one. I've not thrown this one yet. It doesn't have the split ring on the front yet. Any of mine that I use always has a split ring on the front of it, because I like to tie that split ring and give it that little freer action. But out off a lot of these drop-offs, these grass edges, a lot of shallow points, so these glide baits do really well. And the drawing power that they have, even if you don't catch that fish, a lot of times that fish will follow it all the way back to the boat, and you can see it. You know those fish are there. Target them with something different. This is a tool that isn't necessarily going to catch you that fish, but it will get that fish to show itself if it's out there. They're so curious. I've drew so many big fish out of docks that I wouldn't have known was there. Come back a few minutes later, pitch something in there to it, and catch that fish. So that is something to keep in mind, is just because you're not catching fish on it, think of it as a tool to get the fish to show themselves. Because that is one thing that a lot of people do use these for, is to find fish, not to actually catch them. But just because you're throwing these bigger baits, you don't have to have specialized gear to throw this S-Waver. You can throw this on your heavy jig rod and do just as fine as if you've got a specialized glide bait rod. These aren't crazy heavy baits. They're not huge. If you look the size of this versus the size of that sexy dog, it's not a whole lot different, but people see them and they think it's some kind of crazy taboo thing that they can't do, and it's really a simple technique. You can get out, you can just slow roll these S-wavers. There's not even a whole lot of action that you have to impart on them, and they've got such a good action to them. The 6 Sense Draw is another one that's a really good one. This one, again, floats really high. It's almost topwater-ish, but it's got an awesome action to it, but it likes to come to the top a lot. So this is one that I've been experimenting with, trying to find out how to get it down a little bit more, but I've still got tons of bites on it. But you're not just targeting big fish. You will have a 2-pounder come up and eat this thing. You'll have an 8-pounder come up and eat this thing. It's not really, throwing baits in the 6 inch range isn't knocking you out of catching those smaller fish like throwing a 10-inch bait would. A lot of times when you're throwing that 10-inch bait, you're not going to get those smaller bites, but you can capitalize on those larger bites. I like to throw the baits in this size because you still get those smaller bites as well, to be able to get quantity, not just quality. I just enjoy catching fish. It doesn't have to be giants for me to go out and have a good time. So being able to go out and catch those fish, it's key to be able to have a good time on the water. If you're out there and you're not catching anything, chances are you're not having the best time. I personally can go out and just be out on the water and love every minute of it. But a lot of people that you take out, they're not enjoying themselves. So put something in their hand that they can catch fish with and get them back out on the water. I'm an advocate for getting people on the water. That's why I do this channel, is to help people out and hopefully help people to grow as a fisherman, as an angler, to be able to catch more fish and have more fun in the water. But that's going to wrap it up for this. This is going to be a mixture of what I'm going to be throwing. Again, as it gets toward the end of the month, I'll swap over and start throwing this A-rig a lot more. Right now, it's going to consist of jerkbaits, crankbaits, and topwaters for me mainly. And when I can, throw my underspins and my swim jigs. But then more toward the end of the month, I'm going to really swap over and lock one of these in my hand for the majority of my time. Once I find some of these fish that are schooled up on some brush and stuff, man, it's just so much fun. If you haven't, it's not a cheap way to fish, but it is worth it when you catch the fish on this thing. It's just so much fun. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys find some value in this and it helps you guys out on the water and catch a few more fish. These are going to be my go-tos for the month, and I'll have some version of one of these tied on at all times and be out chasing some giants, hopefully. Hopefully you guys can catch some and keep me posted on how you guys do. Leave me some comments down below. All this stuff will be linked, and hopefully get you guys out there and catch some fish. But if you're not subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button so you know when new content comes out. Hit that notification bell, hit that like button. We got some giveaways coming up. That way you guys know when those giveaways go live. And we've done 3 already and plan on doing them as we can. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.